Now part of the Darkcast network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side.
At 12:28 p.m. on December 14th, 2023, Broomfield police officers arrived at a home on the 3100 block of Promontory Loop, responding to a welfare check that had just come in minutes earlier. The call came in from 43-year-old Daniel Bartholomew Krug, who told dispatchers that he hadn't heard from his wife Kristil for several hours and was worried. Quote, "I don't think this is an emergency, but it just feels really weird. My wife isn't responding to text messages or phone calls." He mentioned that for months, Kristil had been getting disturbing messages from someone she believed was her ex-boyfriend. When the officers got to the house, they looked through the garage window and saw a woman on the ground surrounded by blood. Inside, they found 43-year-old Kristil Krug lying near the car, her skin still warm, but without a pulse. There was a bright red blood smear on the drywall beside her. They tried CPR, but it was too late. Kristil was pronounced dead at 12:43 p.m. Police noticed that she had been beaten and stabbed. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide, your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of relationships that took a dark turn and turned to homicide. My name is Kai, and I will be your host, and I invite you to take a seat, take a listen all the way to the end, and if you like my retelling of this case, then don't forget to subscribe on whatever platform you're on so you don't miss another episode, and you can go back in the backlog and listen to other cases. If you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. You can subscribe for free where you do get some benefits of being a free lamb. But if you want bonus episodes, commercial and intro-free episodes, case extras like, videos of the interrogation, pictures of the crime scene, stuff like that, behind the scenes, like, for instance, you hear my bloopers, helping keep Lamb alive and becoming a voice of the victim, and so much more, then you can sign up to one of our bonus tiers and become part of the Lamb fam. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. We have bonus tiers started at only $3 a month and above. Now that we got the house cleaning out of the way, grab your butts, grab your big old delicious glass of apple juice, and let's get back to today's Love and Murder. Kristil was a mother of 3 children, born in 2009, 2012, and 2015. She was a Colorado native, a biochemical engineer known for her intelligence, creativity, and warmth. Her family described her as kind, funny, and deeply devoted to her kids. Her loved ones remembered her for her kindness, generosity, and infectious laughter. Daniel worked for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. They had been married since 2007 and lived in the suburbs between Denver and Boulder. But by late 2023, the marriage had fallen apart. Kristil had already separated her finances and was sleeping in a different bedroom, and had told her parents that she planned to divorce Daniel and seek full custody of their children. She told them that she, quote, couldn't stand that man, and mentioned that he was, quote, sometimes rough with the kids. The investigation into her death started immediately. At first, detectives looked into the stalking reports Kristil had filed. She told police about an ex-boyfriend from over 20 years ago who had been harassing her. According to Kristil, they'd briefly dated for about a year back in 2000 when they were 17 or 18 years old before breaking up. For some reason, in the fall of 2023, Kristil had gotten a random message from this ex saying that he was in town and asked her if she wanted to hook up. Like, dude, that was 20 years ago. No, thank you. She didn't reply to that text, so he started texting her even more, some even angry, and one that called Daniel her, quote, loser husband. Like, how do you know who my husband is? The messages turned threatening, sometimes telling her that she was being watched. By October 31st, Kristil became so concerned that she went to the police. She reported an email that she'd gotten that day that had a picture of Daniel, quote, exiting his vehicle at his workplace, along with an obscene message. Kristil started keeping track of everything. She made a detailed spreadsheet, a dossier documenting all the harassment, the fake emails, the phone numbers, even the license plate of suspicious cars she saw near her home. By November, the situation had gotten worse. She began receiving messages that included her exact location and other personal details, proving someone was actively tracking her. That must have been terrifying. On November 13, she got a text that said, quote, "Help me get rid of him, then we could be together," referring to Daniel. These messages didn't stop. They continued into December, growing more invasive and threatening. The constant harassment left Kristil exhausted and terrified. She told officers, quote, "This is exhausting. It has definitely made me paranoid everywhere I go." She decided to take steps to protect herself. She bought a new gun, signed up for firearm safety classes, and started carrying her concealed firearm in her special purse. Police even launched counter-surveillance and undercover operations to try and figure out who was behind these messages while they're really doing their due diligence. So, only hours after the murder, investigators contacted the ex-boyfriend Kristil thought was responsible, Jack Holland, in Eagle Mountain, Utah, over 8 hours away, and quickly learned that he had a solid alibi. He'd been at a Kohl's store that morning with receipts and surveillance footage to prove it. He hadn't even left Utah. Once Jack was cleared, detectives turned their attention back to Daniel, as digital forensics pointed directly back to him. Detectives got the IP addresses for the fake email accounts and were traced to a password-protected network at Daniel's workplace. As a matter of fact, one of the fake email accounts was actually made on a password-protected network at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. Police found that one email was sent at 8:12 a.m. on the day he had clocked in for work. Investigators found that the burner phones had been activated with a Visa gift card registered to Daniel's name. And one of the phones used to harass Kristil had pinged in the exact same areas as Daniel's personal phone multiple times. The more they dug, the worse it looked. When police confronted him with this information, Daniel tried to deflect. He said maybe Kristil was having an affair. Quote, "There must be somebody else." When detectives told him that her ex had been cleared beyond doubt, Daniel leaned back, rolled his eyes, and said sarcastically, quote, "Ugh, it has to be the husband." 2 days later, on December 16th, 2023, officers said, yeah, it has to be the husband, and arrested Daniel at King Soopers grocery store. He was charged with first-degree murder, 2 counts of stalking, and criminal impersonation. After his arrest, Daniel was booked into the Broomfield Detention Center. Investigators called the case, quote, one of the most disturbing domestic homicides they'd ever seen because of how calculated it was. Even as he sat in jail, Daniel continued trying to manipulate the story. During interviews with detectives, he denied everything. He said he was being framed and claimed someone must have even hacked his accounts. He also said he loved Kristil and would never hurt her. Daniel's trial started on April 4th, 2025, and lasted more than 2 weeks. Prosecutors described him as methodical and analytical, someone who, quote, didn't love her, he hated her. They said Daniel had created a fictional stalker and spent months terrorizing his wife to isolate and control her, hoping she would turn back to him. When she finally began to see through him, he killed her to end the lie before she exposed it. To break it down more, prosecutors explained that Daniel began a calculated plan to manipulate Kristil and hold on to her. He decided to create an outside threat, someone they could both fear. Then he could play the role of protector. The scheme started around October 2023 when Kristil received the first messages from someone claiming to be Jack Holland. But by December, she had started wondering if the threat was a bit closer to home than she thought. She told her family, quote, I can't even rule out my husband. The night before the murder, Daniel's Google searches gave away what he was thinking. On December 13th, 2023, he searched, quote, how hard would you have to hit someone in the head to make them unconscious? What the? Wow. He also searched, quote, how long can you be unconscious without brain damage? And, quote, when is a head injury a cause for concern? So it looks like he was trying to escalate this. He wasn't really trying to kill her, but he wanted it to seem like maybe this guy had come and hit her, and then maybe with this narration, she would finally come back to him. The next morning, Kristil dropped off their 2 kids at school and drove home. She parked in the garage around 8 a.m. What she didn't know, though, was that Daniel was already there waiting for her. He ambushed her from behind, hitting her multiple times in the back of the head with a blunt object. The blows caused severe head injuries. Then he stabbed her in the heart. Like, when did it turn to stabbing? Weren't you just searching and hitting? I guess because he found out, like, it's not the movies. You hitting somebody once in the back of a head with a shoe isn't going to cause them to pass out. It's going to take real work. And when you saw she wasn't passing out, I guess maybe he panicked. Look, I'm not giving him any excuses. Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to figure out where it turned from how hard would you have to hit somebody in the head to render them unconscious to now stabbing in the heart. That's all I'm doing. When police found her, her purse and keys were still beside her. Her gun was still inside her purse. There were no signs of a struggle, suggesting that she never even saw it coming. Daniel immediately began to clean up and cover his tracks. Using Kristil's phones, he turned off 3 of their home security cameras and covered the doorbell camera with blue masking tape from the kitchen drawer. He disabled the home security system at 8:15 a.m. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's house showed him leaving at 8:24 a.m., about 30 minutes later than his normal routine. He then deactivated his car's dash cam, which is something that they saw that he never did before stopping at a coffee shop. At the coffee shop, he corrected the barista about his order, insisting on a hot drink instead of an iced one, basically trying to make a scene so that the barista would remember him. He wanted to appear calm, normal, and routine. After getting to work, he texted Kristil's phone multiple times, pretending to be worried that she wasn't responding. Around 8:56 a.m., he sent himself a pre-scheduled message from the phone to make it look like she was still alive. But forensics proved that her phone hadn't been active since 8:22 a.m., exactly when Daniel had been in the garage. At noon, Daniel called the police non-emergency line and asked for a welfare check, pretending to be concerned. He told the dispatcher he hadn't heard from his wife all morning and that she had been under stress from being stalked. When police arrived, they found exactly what Daniel already knew they would. He also called her mother, Linda, who arrived at the scene around 12:40 p.m. when a responding officer was performing CPR on her daughter. How diabolical do you have to be? Freaking cold-blooded bastard! Then they showed the jury how Daniel had manipulated every part of the narrative. They played the audio from his 911 call where he sounded calm and polite, telling dispatchers that he didn't think it was an emergency. They showed the timestamp proving that by the time he called, Kristil had already been dead for hours. Detectives testified to everything the prosecution had laid out. The medical examiner testified that the autopsy found Kristil suffered, quote, 2 or more blunt force trauma wounds to the back of the head and 1 stab wound to the left side of her chest. When it was time for the defense, you know how I hate the defense, Daniel's attorneys argued that the evidence was circumstantial. They claimed there was no proof that he actually sent the messages or that he had killed Kristil. They tried to paint the investigation as lazy and incomplete and argued that none of Daniel's DNA was found on Kristil and that police failed to test her phone for fingerprints. They pointed to partial DNA from an unknown person on Kristil's neck and said it could belong to the real killer. They also insisted Daniel's behavior that morning, correcting a barista's order, driving his daughter to the bus stop, didn't fit the profile of a cold-blooded killer. What would a cold-blooded killer have done if they had just cold-blooded killed and didn't want to get caught? Tell me what that profile looks like then. That theory, however, didn't last long. The prosecution quickly dismantled it. They pointed out that every burner phone Daniel used pinged off the same cell towers as his personal phone within minutes of each other. The most powerful testimony came from Kristil's mother and brother Lars. Her brother testified about how terrified she had been in the weeks leading up to her death and how Daniel had pretended to care. Lars said that during one conversation about the so-called stalker, Daniel told him he was between vigilance and paranoia, explaining that whenever a car would come by, he would stand up and look out the window. Even Linda spoke about how scared her daughter had been, saying nobody knew what the stalker was capable of. To find out that it was Daniel all along, pretending to protect her while he was the one causing her fear, left them shattered and furious. Her mother broke down on the stand, describing how Kristil had confided in her just days before the murder. Quote, "She said she was finally done." That statement became the emotional center of the trial because it was exactly what Daniel couldn't stand. Prosecutors argued that the murder wasn't a moment of rage. It was the final act of a long, deliberate plan. During closing arguments, the prosecutor told the jury that Daniel wanted to scare Kristil and win her back by uniting against a common threat. When the ruse failed, quote, "The only thing left to do was to end Kristil's life, both to silence her and to punish her for not wanting to be with him." The jury deliberated for less than a day. On April 17, 2025, Daniel was found guilty of first-degree murder, 2 counts of stalking, and criminal impersonation. Kristil's family filled the front row of the courtroom. When the verdict was read, her mother cried quietly as her brother hugged her. Behind them, Daniel's family sat in stunned silence. He was handcuffed immediately and led away. The next day, Judge Priscilla Lowe sentenced Daniel to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 9.5 years for the stalking and impersonation charges. His parents didn't attend the sentencing. Kristil's father addressed the court, quote, "My daughter was brilliant, kind, and compassionate. She trusted the wrong man. He destroyed her life, and he destroyed our family. This horrible and brutal murder has been absolutely traumatic for this family. Our grandchildren's lives have been forever altered." Kristil's family continues to share her story, not just a tragedy, but as a warning. Daniel, now 44, maintains his innocence. He told the court that he plans to appeal. He is currently serving his sentence at the Sterling Correctional Facility in Colorado. Even from prison, Daniel has shown no remorse. Prosecutors said that he's never once admitted what he did or expressed regret for the months he spent terrorizing her. This case is a reminder to all the lambs that abuse isn't always physical. It can begin with fear, control, and lies. Linda Grimsrud spoke to 2020 saying, quote, "Every day is a difficult day. You wake up and you feel the pain, and then you just try to go on with your day." Kristil's children, now 16, 13, and 10, are in the custody of her brother and his wife in Boulder, Colorado, where Lars works as an engineer at First RF Corporation. And that is the case of a man who just couldn't let go. Instead of just accepting that, she didn't want to be with you anymore, he decided to terrorize this woman, terrorize the mother of his children, terrorize somebody that he claimed to love. And then when he still couldn't get her back, he decided that if I can't have you, no one will. What did you think about this episode? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, or you can go over to the Patreon and tell me your thoughts there. And if you are experiencing domestic violence, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or go to thehotline.org. All calls are toll-free and confidential, and the hotline is available 24/7 in more than 170 languages. You could also visit my website for more resources, murderandlove.com. That's love and murder backwards, murderandlove.com. So go ahead and let me know what you think about this case. Have you ever heard of anything as convoluted as this? Just pure, unadulterated craziness. And still, even though all the evidence points to him, he's still maintaining his innocence. It's just crazy. Let me know your thoughts. Go to the Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. You can join as a free lamb there and let me know your thoughts over in the Patreon. But if you want bonus episodes, you want to help me continue being a voice of the victim, getting these cases out, getting these stories heard, giving people different options other than murder, because maybe they'll hear this maybe they'll hear my episodes and hear me talk about how stupid these people who think their solutions are brilliant, how stupid they are, and maybe they'll choose a different avenue. If you want to help me help them help themselves, then join the Patreon, patreon.com, at one of our bonus tiers. Right now, I am putting out an influx of bonus episodes, so if you want to catch any of those, then join the Patreon at one of the tiers that's $5 a month and above. If you just want ad-free episodes, intro-free episodes, case extras, and to be a voice of the victim, then you can join to support us at just a $3 a month tier. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. And as we end each full episode, I want to remind you that it's, say it with me now, all love and no murder, y'all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for believing in love and murder. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.